Hey guys, welcome to LOL starring Chris Smith, the best comedy show on Love to Be Radio. Why is that? It's because it's the only comedy show on Love to Be Radio. And tonight's guest, I have got a splendid guest right now because it's getting close to Halloween, so I thought, why not bring on a spooky person? He is the award-winning author of such novels as The Conquered Earth young adult series, such novels as The Razor, the famous author of the comic book series Poe, based on Edgar Allan Poe. But most recently, which most of you probably will know, as I have introduced by him, he is the writer, creator, and editor of the very famous, critically acclaimed podcast series Derelict and Fathom, the sci-fi horror series based in space, where the look of what happens when something unearthed shouldn't be unearthed. Mr. J. Barton Mitchell. Jack, lovely to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. This is my first live show, so it's a little more pressure, a little more real.
Nah, you're perfectly fine. So it's all good. So, I mean, as I said at the top of the show, you're a well-renowned author. You have written many books in your life, especially quite a few that have been award-winning, which has been fantastic. So why then the shift to audio?
Well, that's kind of it's a long answer to that question. I've been writing since I was probably 8 years old, before I really knew what it meant to be a writer. A story I always tell is that the first thing I ever wrote was basically I had a blank notebook and I copied a Curious George book line for line and gave it to my mom to show what I had done.
That must have been nice.
Yeah, and I mean she could have she was incredibly encouraging and said, oh, this is so great, what a great job you've done here, as opposed to being like you've just plagiarized a published work.
So I have to sue you for this.
Yeah. So I kind of always saw myself in doing fiction, and but as I got older, I really got into movies, and I went to film school, and that kind of became my main focus was script writing, which I still think is sort of my strength. I think I'm a pretty good novelist. I think I do some things good, some things average. But I do think my strength is kind of on the script side of stuff. So I started in the screenplay world in film and television, and gradually I moved into comics, and then it was like a gradual shift from less visual stuff to books. And books was really where I had my first kind of bigger success. But I just always had a love for movies and television, and when the fiction space started to kind of blow up, I just had the idea for doing Derelict and Fathom, and my whole take on it was to do it as if it was a movie. You were just sort of listening to a movie or a television show. There's no conceit as to why it's just audio. It's just the soundtrack to a film or a Netflix show or something. So that was kind of the reason for the shift. It was just going back to this thing that I really love doing, which is working with scripts. But it allowed me to also produce the finished thing. Screenplays for the most part are a blueprint for someone else to go and make something, and this I get to be the person to make it. So I had a lot of allure.
I love that. I mean, because we'll get to your writing in a second, but one thing that links most of your work together is since it's quite horror-esque in a sense. It is quite sort of kind of like horror, science fiction sort of side. Has that always been your motif? You've always liked sci-fi, or was that sort of a nuanced thing you got into?
Yeah, I just love genre in general, and I love all of them, and I have an affinity for all of them in different ways. But for whatever reason, it seems like that's the thing that I really write on my own, is something in the sci-fi genre. And then it usually brings in some of those other genre elements. And then you mentioned horror. I mean, I've been a giant Lovecraft fan for forever. I love, so I think if you really kind of look at what I'm doing, it's not that far removed from the mythos type of entities or species or whatever. And so yeah, I love the sci-fi horror combination. I love aliens.
I was going to ask
that great mix of stuff.
I was going to ask because we'll get into Derek and Fathom in a bit, but a big inspiration from that listening to it, because I'm a fan of it, does seem from Alien, of just finding a alien creature.
Sure. Yeah, I've always loved. I mean, the derelict ship idea, I just think is so cool. And anything that's been abandoned and people go to explore it, I don't know, something about that story beat that really. And I've done a lot of. I've messed with that over and over, you know. But yeah, certainly. I mean, Alien, and then I would say, uh, Blade Runner as well. For the Weyland Yutani connection in Alien, and then I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember the name of the corporation in Blade Runner that's making the replicants, the big one, but the megacorp idea, and is also another thing I really find interesting. So Moss Dorian within the show is like a homage to that kind of.
Well, because Agent Blaine is sort of a take on Harrison Ford's character there, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I think I think exploring. You know, I love William Gibson's work as well. It's the cyberpunk stuff. I love cyberpunk in general, and the corporations moving to the level of like government level power. I think is fascinating. And what's also fascinating to me is exploring what the logistics of that would look like. You know, what type of infrastructure do you need to sustain that? You know, and that's kind of what what Blaine is sort of. He is kind of a James Bond type guy, but he's also like a corporate fixer, and he goes and he deals with contract issues, and he makes sure people are doing their job. You know, I mean, what kind of things would you need to really run a Weyland Yutani type entity? You know, I don't know. So drilling down into minutia of stuff interests me as well.
Well, before we get into Fathom and Derelict, which I know everyone wants, we at least have got to touch base on your previous work, which is a plethora of things which I love. So let's start with one of the earliest, which was your graphic novel, Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, which does, I mean, I looked into it, but which does have a little bit of Lovecraftian Hellboy, like fantasy stuff in there. But I mean, why are you a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe? Why him?
I am, yeah. Especially like at an early age, I read a ton of Poe. I think Poe was probably my bridge to Lovecraft. For whatever reason, it's not like back in the day when you're like, now you read something on Amazon, it'll say, here's some other books that you might like if you like this, but you didn't have that. But I guess it was just maybe librarians. I don't know. But anyway, it was kind of a bridge to Lovecraft. So I did read a lot of that stuff. I was interested in the idea of, like you mentioned, Hellboy, who's certainly more physical and gun oriented and martial, but I like the idea of like supernatural investigators. And it just was, an interesting idea that, he was who he was as a writer, but all the stuff he wrote was real, like stuff that he had, interacted with. And, so like if you haven't read the comic, like the villain is like the Red Death. So, and who actually is, well, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a Roderick Usher connection and all kinds of things. So yeah, it was kind of a meditation and all that stuff, but trying to make it into kind of a him as a supernatural investigator. And then I added, I don't know, just him exploring the grief of losing his wife through that process as an arc. It was actually, I had written it as a screenplay, and it got set up at Akiva Goldsman's company called Weed Road at the time. And it didn't happen there, but my manager said this would be a good comic, and she went to Boom Studios with it, and they wanted to do it. I feel I really love that. I love comic books so much. I've read them forever. It was such an honor to work on one, and to see the art come in and everything is so cool. But at the time, Boom was only doing 4-episode arcs. That's what you got, was 4 episodes with a strict page count. And so I think the first 3 episodes of that series are really good. And I feel the 4th is a little truncated. I think if it could have been 5 issues instead of 4, and it would work a little better. I still think you should read it, but I
only had enough time to read the first issue before I'll read the rest, because it's because I do like the fact you do touch on base that a lot of people don't know that Edgar Allan Poe did sort of create the detective genre. He is the one.
Also true. Yeah. Totally true. Yeah, Murders in the Rue Morgue. Yeah, it was like everything that Agatha Christie or Conan Doyle ended up doing. Yeah. He did kind of before that.
Yeah. Well, he based the work on it. But yeah, I mean, so writing a comic, or at least writing what would eventually be a comic, did lead on to other things, including your big series, which is The Conquered Earth, which I've not had the chance to read because because there's 4 or 5 books and I don't have that much time on my hands.
Yeah.
But for anyone who doesn't know, The Conquered Earth, it is basically set on, well, not Conquered Earth, right? Aliens have invaded Earth, and the only people that are not affected by the anomaly, I think it is that they've done, are children. Have I got that right?
Yeah. So the way the aliens invade and take over so quickly is they broadcast this thing called the tone, which is just this. Yeah. So it's just this signal that blankets the Earth, but it doesn't, for whatever reason, due to brain chemistry or neuron structure or whatever, the signal doesn't really become active until you're in your early 20s, around 20, 21, 22. And at that point, as you age, you start to feel the effect taking more of a hold on you. And and then there's a point where you I can't remember what I call it. You turn, you succumb. That's the word. And the tone takes you over, and then you just kind of slowly walk to the nearest alien ship, and you disappear inside, and no one knows what happens to you. So kind of metaphorical about loss of youth and transition to adulthood, and
No, I like it because it's sort of that.
Yeah. So the only people left to fight them are kids, but it's also this kind of I think I did it back at a time when I was finding that I had these ideas that didn't sort of work by themselves, but if I combined them, suddenly it made like this cool thing. And one of the ideas I had was for a dystopian world that was kind of inspired by Roadside Picnic, the famous science fiction novel. If you've read,
I have, ages ago.
Yeah. So the idea there in Roadside Picnic is basically that, like, somewhere in Russia, aliens landed, and they were there for a couple hours, and then they left. But they left all this stuff behind, and in the area where they left it behind, they called it the zone, and it was irradiated. And these people called stalkers went in there, and they would get these items and bring them out, and each item would do like weird stuff. They were imbued with weird like abilities and things, and they would bring them out. And the idea was that maybe the aliens, it's like maybe they were on a road trip and they stopped for a picnic on Earth for a little bit, and then they left, and they left their trash here. And that was kind of the metaphor for that book. But the zone and the stalkers, that's always been such a big influence for me, and I just loved that idea. And so I had my own kind of thing in Conquered Earth called the Strange Lands, which was very similar. And there were things that instead of stalkers, they were called freebooters, and they would go in and they would get the stuff that was left behind. And they would bring it out. It might be a pencil, but a pencil outside of the Strange Lands would do a specific thing. Some weird, and you could combine these items together in different ways and make these other things. And anyway, that's what freebooters did. So I had that idea, and then I had this other idea for an alien invasion idea with the aliens were kind of like spectral based, color based, and all these different factions and stuff. But neither one worked together. And then I sort of, well, what if you made them one story? And then suddenly it was this whole thing. And the characters that I had in one and the other kind of like melded together well. So that's kind of where that came from. That was my first time writing fiction in a while. Because like I said, I did it as a kid, and then I moved more into screenplays. But I think that I think you can see me figuring stuff out.
It's a jump though to go from basically like you said, writing
it is
little things like that, but then to writing a dystopian science fiction book, literally a subject about a conquered Earth. Aliens have just taken over, which is something which not a lot of writers do. They like to write their stuff of aliens arriving or aliens deciding to do it, not just aliens have taken over everything.
Starting after the fact. Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. Yeah, it was a big jump into going to doing dialogue only to prose and all that stuff. And so I think by the third book, which is the one that won best science fiction of that year by the RT Book Review, I was doing pretty good. And it gave me it gave me confidence to go and do the next book, which was going to be a series as well. It didn't actually end up happening, but bigger in scope and stuff. So it was a great learning experience. I love that story world. I love those characters. They're very real to me. I still go and visit them in my head and see how they're doing. And but
That does sound really
yeah,
good, of course. Yeah.
yeah.
But you touched on a little bit earlier. It says like you're more used to writing screenplays. You're more used to writing, which a lot of for people who don't know, a lot of screenplays is a lot of dialogue, and then suddenly to then writing fiction, which is a lot of description. It is sort of like describing absolutely everything because you have to. Was it when you first started? Was it difficult to sort of just think like, how do I write down everything, especially with sci-fi? How do I describe every piece of technology that they have to discover now or talk about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, I think I was lucky because I had spent, even though it was back in the past, I mean, a good amount of time up through being 17 or 18, which is a good 10 years of, because I started really, really early, not writing good stuff, but still right. I'd written a lot of like fiction. So I had that muscle kind of developed. And I was an avid reader of fiction. So that helps, I mean, I had influences and knew. So, I always describe my writing process as just, I mean, if I have to pin it down, it's just writing and rewriting until I don't cringe anymore reading it, and so,
I think I can take that.
Yeah. It took longer to get to a cringe-free read with the books, but I feel I did kind of get there, and I did sort of figure out, like, I think my own sort of voice, which was like a first person, third person kind of mix, where it's really the characters' kind of thoughts, but they're in third person, and that helped. But yeah, I don't know. It's such a luxury too. Like it felt really liberating because you get to go into the character's head. You don't get to do that with scripts unless there's a voiceover or something, and that's gives you so much more latitude, and it's really cool.
I suppose it gives you more freedom because you get the character's head. You are the characters. It says that you can picture exactly what they do and how they feel, whereas you can't script. You actually have to work together with the actors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. Yeah.
But you did that, Conquer the Earth series, which is still available on Amazon for anyone wants to look and buy, because it does look very, very interesting. But then that led you to what was, you said, your first, I was going to say a proper book, but no, all the books are proper, but like one where it's like you felt something different, which was The Razor.
Mm-hmm.
So
the Razor, again, Conquer Earth was young adult. And I have a big affinity for young adult stuff. I loved, growing up, like Nancy Drew and Tripods, and I mean, the Harry Potter later on and stuff. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in young adult, but it does come with certain guardrails. You can't do certain things. You can't have certain language. So the Razor being not regular sci-fi, I don't know what you call it, non-adult, I mean, adult sci-fi.
I think that's just quite regular. It's just
it's strange. It's a strange term. That was another step in complexity in a way, because now you have more stuff in your toolbox, right? So and the
was it more freeing? Was it more like, I can actually make my character do a lot more?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, because I mean, I like I don't know. I like dark. I mean, Conquer Earth goes to some dark places, but I like darker stuff. I like noir type stuff. So being able to have kind of, I don't know. I mean, you can have. I mean, I think Harry Potter has real evil. I don't think it's like a kid version of evil. I think a lot of.
I mean,
the Death Eater stuff is.
As a long-time Harry Potter fan and rereading the books myself in preparation, just like you can sort of tell, yes, there are dark things in it, but there's also limits of like, okay, so that they're not allowed to like sort of swear or do things proper. Where it's like, I imagine in Conquer Earth, like, there's some dark elements, but it's like, I'm pretty sure if the character got shot, they would say a lot more harsh things.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, if you look at it from like, what are they about? Like, right, what are the Death Eaters about? It's kind of it's like a take on racism. You know what I mean? That's like, in a way, right? Like Muggle hatred. I mean, that's something we're dealing with now, and I think that's a pretty adult thing to explore. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I mean, that's why I feel it's kind of like real evil. But I don't know. But the Razor just sort of lets you, adult, like normal fiction lets you it takes some of the guardrails off, and it lets you do, and then you can't really explore sexuality. Not that the Razor deeply explores sexuality, but it does have aspects of that you don't really mess with in
It
YA.
was
So
you could do
right.
that more.
Yeah, so you have so you have all options are on the table with that. So that was cool. And it was Conquered Earth had basically 3 POV characters, and that with the Razor, it was like five or six. So that was, and each one had to have its own feel, and so it took it up a notch. I thought, like, in complexity, and I don't know. I'm happy with how it came out.
I mean, you should be, but it's like, is it? I mean, you're saying you're up in the ante no matter what. Then did that come with more relief to it, or was there a sense of like a challenge of, oh, okay, now that I am adding more characters, now that I am adding more stakes to the fact, I have to really look at this preparedly, or is it just like, oh no, I've done 4 books, I know how to do this easily?
No, it because it was. I think in Conquered Earth, all the characters are kind of on almost the same trajectory, character-wise, and in the Razor, each is on their kind of own, doing their own thing, and like so there's all these different arcs, and then each one has a different voice. So it did feel pretty daunting at the beginning, knowing that I was gonna like try and take that on, and so it required a lot more, mapping out and strategy, I guess is the right word. As I wrote, I tend to, I'm an outliner. I tend to outline plots. In writing, there's what we call outliners and pantsers. Pantsers being they fly by the seat of their pants. They just kind of write, the Stephen King model. They just sit down and write, and they don't really outline. But I always start with an outline, and then once I get in, that outline becomes kind of its own thing and goes different directions, right? So I'm kind of both, but the Razor required a lot of like, mapping stuff out than I've done in the past.
Let's delve into that a little bit. So the Razor, which is sort of, I was going to say, the first problem one where they're set in space. But a good way to say is that if you like, for anyone out there, if you like Derelict and Fathom, then you will like the Razor, because it's a very good book. I will read it as soon as I can, but I'd love to add it to my repertoire of things. But we talked about it a little bit earlier, since like this one does seem like the Razor very much sounds like Alien. Like when you read, you're looking at like you sort of hit sense of like, this is Predator, this is Alien, this is like you going full into like, okay, now I'm going into the horror bit of sci-fi, Now like, let's try and get creepy with it,
It definitely goes that direction for sure. So the idea is basically that it's set on a prison planet, and they mine this material. They're forced to mine it, and so the idea is basically like one day the prisoners wake up and the planet has been, all the guards have abandoned them. They left. And they're just left on this planet, and they don't know why, and like clearly like some emergency has occurred, but they have no idea what it is, and it ends up being kind of this. It ultimately ends up being this kind of galactic level of threat that they're the only ones left to sort of deal with, and that goes into the cosmic horror stuff. But also what I found interesting about it and why I wanted to do it was to deal with like sci-fi villain stereotypes, like archetypes, like the smuggler and the assassin and the hacker and the serial killer, and to take these super established sci-fi archetypes and try and find something different with each one and explore them in different ways, and have them become, many of them are not, I mean, they're on a prison planet, many of them are not good people from a traditional rule set, right? And so you would see there, by virtue of the situation that they're forced in, to kind of transform into, to be forced into a hero role. And some of them are resentful of that.
Yes.
But that's what they have to do. And so that was very interesting to me as well.
No, but I do like that, because like it's a trait that has followed into Derelict and Fathom as well, though, in sense of making your main characters flawed human beings, since that they are our fiction characters, they do sort of have the role of like, there's the hero, there's the archetype villain, there's the complicated one, there's the love interest, but it's like there's more stuff going on. So there's no one in your stories that's inherently I'm all good or I'm all evil. I have background stuff or I have damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That I just think that's super interesting. Like flawed characters or characters dealing with really difficult stuff that's drama, and I think the exploration, I love plot, I love world building, I love all this stuff, but it always comes to character. I think if you look at, I don't know, I always say, like, I love the TV show Lost, and
Yeah.
to me, I loved all the stuff happening on the island. It was really engaging and cool, but lots of times the flashback stuff was more interesting and compelling, which isn't a criticism of the island stuff. That was awesome too. It's just so cool. That character stuff was so kind of gripping, and I think it shows you the character stuff can be just as cool. And I think you need flawed characters. You need characters dealing with heavy stuff and stuff that we all kind of relate to.
But since I do love that, because it's the characters that have to, no matter what it is, them that drives the story, and no matter how you feel about it, you do have to empathize. You have to like some characters at some point. It's like,
for sure.
Things.
Yeah. Or like them, root for them, which is kind of a different.
Yeah,
thing, you know what I mean? Like it's
a weird sense of how, like, I always tell people that with Breaking Bad, you root for Walter White. Walter White's not a good guy.
No,
he is horrible. But you still root for him because he's your bad guy.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, it's a hard needle to thread. But that's
but when you outline everything, you outline every character. Do you sort of think like, oh, okay, this is the part they're going to go, or can it divulge? Can it go further into a bit like later in the story? You think, you know what? I'm going to change this about this, or make them connected, or do that. Do you change into out, or is it all set out before you start writing?
It's all set up, and then when I get into it, it goes off the rails. Other things totally occur to me, and it goes. Some character stuff will go a completely different direction. Plot stuff will go a completely different direction. But I do think by the end it's a 50-50. It's a 50-50 split. I always have the ending in my head, and the journey to that ending can move around, but I've never not had it go to that ending, if that makes sense.
I can, but which I guess it's difficult to do that when most of your stuff, well, not all, when you dive into the Lovecraftian horror aspect, it's really difficult to make a quote unquote happy ending. But more since it has to be a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
Which even still in horror is tough to do, especially even in the sci-fi, is still hard to do. I mean, has any of your work, have you gone back to it and think, oh, I wish I could have resolved this?
Like resolve it differently?
Well, it's just, was there any part of something where it's like, like later in life you decided, oh, I wish I should have done that differently, or something where it's like you left it open ending, you're like, oh, now I have a good ending for it.
Oh no, not in anything that like I've done. I mean, the Razor was going to be, the Razor would have been another series, so that's certainly left open ended. It just it didn't get to continue, unfortunately, but there's been I have so many like things in my head, like stories and stuff going back forever, and they're just like these little seeds, is how I think of them, and they're planted, and as I work on other stuff, like I mentioned with Conquered Earth, how those two things came together. Down the road, some of the stuff that would have been in the Razor, I'm sure will show up somewhere else. And so I don't see it as a loss. I see it as it's an investment in creativity. It's an investment in making these, I don't know, platforms that can be used later. And they always kind of generally do get used later. It's kind of neat thinking that, like keeping the razor as an example, like I wonder where that stuff will show up. Like I wonder how that's going to come later.
On that, because I've also been talked about this, but like when it comes to writing a book, which I think all of us have done, even I've done this, tried once, or like writing anything, the one thing you don't want to feel is, am I accidentally stealing someone else's work, or have I just reimagined something I've already seen? Is there a difficulty that's happened to you in your past books where you've thought something and you think, oh damn, I've just copied someone else, or is it just, do you keep focused on it?
Such an interesting question. Was it Hemingway that said amateurs borrow, professionals steal?
Yes,
the other way around.
Yes.
I can't remember, but I think that's such a cool comment, because so much stuff is influenced by other stuff. Like it's just a part of it, Yeah. Even there's a screenplay I want to write called Two Lions, and one of my favorite movies is called The Wind and the Lion. It's this kind of underrated film that John Milius made after Conan the Barbarian. It's Lawrence of Arabia thing. It's kind of based on history. Sean Connery plays like an Arabic prince. Like it's completely miscast, but he's amazing. Everyone should watch this movie. It's super cool. But there's this one thing in that movie where the Americans are trying to get the Sultan or whoever to let them go into their territory to go do this thing. And they say, and they offer him this and they offer him that, and he doesn't want it. And he's like, okay, what do you want? And he says, lions. Lions are noble. Lions would be, I would love to have 2 lions here. Mm-hmm. And so they go, okay. And then it cuts, and the Americans are bringing in 2 lions in a cage to this guy. And he says, great, thank you. You'll have tanks and you'll have supplies and whatever you can go. But it occurred to me, like, who went and got those lions? Like that's a whole movie right there.
That's a whole track.
Right? It's an adventure of like going to go find these lions, and this is like 1912 or whatever. Like transport them from Africa to the Middle East. Like, what did that involve, right? And so that spurred this whole story I want to tell about that, right? That's just this one element in that movie, and it's an influence, and it's a thing that John Milius came up with. But I don't think that me taking that germ of an idea and embellishing it is in any way disrespectful to Milius or stealing. I think it's you can look at the whole career of Brian De Palma, right? I mean, like, that was a guy, or is a guy, is like super as a encyclopedic knowledge of cinema. When you watch the Kevin Costner one, why can't I think of the name? Names are, as I get older, The Untouchables.
Oh, right. So I was just
the scene in the in this, where they go to arrest the guy in the subway, and the baby carriage goes down the stairs in slow motion. That's a scene from another black and white, another Russian black and white movie, Battleship Potemkin, I think. Right. That's just him he's influenced by that. He loves it, and he's making a homage to it. Right. So there's different levels. I think I have an intrinsic, as a creator myself, I think I have an intrinsic level of, if someone was influenced by something that I did and did it in the way I'm doing it, would I find that too much? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I imagine. Yeah.
I don't think because I do it myself. I think I know where the line is. Which isn't to say I do it all the time, but I'm certainly like influenced by a bunch of stuff. I think the other part of your question was, are you worried about it, like accidentally finding that you've done something very similar to something you just weren't aware of?
Yeah, well, yeah, because
I don't know.
Right, there was a line of like paying homage, like, oh, I'm doing this. It's like, and then there's a line of like, oh, I'm just copying this, aren't I?
Right. Yeah. I mean, but or unintentionally copying it. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do about that. That second one. I guess I think that's why you see, like, if you remember, Deep Impact and Armageddon came out basically at the same time, 2 meteors hitting Earth movies, right? So I think the reason that happens, and you see patterns of that, is that there's something in the ether at that time and both writers were influenced by the same thing, and it got them on the same track. You know what I mean? And so I just feel it's just a part of it.
No, I get it. It's like when when 20 days into Zombieland and The Walking Dead all appeared within the same 5 years or something like that.
Yes.
Like just suddenly zombies just became the thing to listen to watch, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But okay, so we got a bit of time left before the first hour ends. But one thing I imagine everyone asks you, that everyone you know asks you, or have had fans come up to you, which is, how do I get started writing? Which is, how do you start writing a book? You know?
I don't, I think the main advice I give, and I don't care what it is that you're writing, is, I guess, two things. What I find that, contrary to the romantic view of it, writing is two things. It's a lot of just sitting and thinking. Again, I'm an outliner. But I think regardless, there's a lot of just sitting and, that's why the term writer's block exists. There's a point at which it always becomes work. It's a point where it becomes effort. And I notice with younger writers that when that point hits, it was the same for me. It still is the same for me. Stopping and working on something else becomes really attractive, because it's just the feeling of working on a new book or a new script or a new comic, whatever it is so like intoxicating, and it just feels so good. It's new and everything's, there's endless possibility. And
I completely agree, because I'm writing my own little thing right now, but I've only just sort of started, and writing the whole thing, or he's going into it, I just keep thinking of, I could do this story instead, I could do that one, or this one. Just damn it, work on this one first.
It's just something about it. Just resets the brain in this great way to just go to do something, and that's the biggest obstacle. It wasn't until, like I said, I started doing fiction. It wasn't until I got to college and I took my first creative writing class that I finished something, because I was forced to. I had a deadline for that class. I had no choice. I had to finish that thing. And I was 18, probably. Finishing something for the first time, finishing it every time, it's so important to get the first draft, to belt that out, and to just know it's not going to be very good. It's going to be this weird mix of stuff. My first drafts are unreadable. They're because, like I said, I'll start writing and then I'll think, the story really should be going this way, not this way. And just in the middle of that draft, it shifts, and then I got to go back and switch it. So just to know, getting that first draft is just so critical. And then, I promise every draft after that is subsequently easier, like exponentially easier, because it just starts to form. But it's so tough to get that first one, but by the same token, the other thing I always say is, I see people, like, I have a friend who's trying to write. He's much younger, and he said to me many times, he said, yeah, I just, I'm gonna go to Hollywood and I'm gonna work on my screenplay. And that to me means, well, he has the one idea. And the sad reality is, it takes, unless you're Michael Chapman or something, it takes 8, 9, 10 somethings. Everyone has their own number to get to where you're producing good stuff. And the only way to get to number 10 is to not be working on number 1 anymore, right? To move to number 2 and then move to number 3. And that is, I also see people who've gotten to the end of something, letting go of it and moving on is a hard thing. And I think you just have to see, I think you have to think thinking that all this effort I'm putting into this thing that means so much to me emotionally is like this learning experience. It's tough for the ego sometimes, but I think it's so critical to just, there's something so important about finishing something, stopping it, taking what you've learned, starting a new thing.
Well, I mean,
learning, putting that aside, starting another,
Yeah, I agree to that, because I mean, to quote Ernest Hemingway, that the first draft of every written thing is bad.
Shit. Yeah.
It is never going to be good. It is
right.
never good.
Yeah.
Get that out of the way, it's fine. But also, there is a thing of like, because I noticed this with my family, always, maybe you may have noticed that there is a thing of like, some people can write and some people just can't. It's just that there are people who can just sort of stare at the blank piece of the blank piece of paper that of terror, and can just jot out 2,000 words in a night, you know?
Yeah,
and to just spew out ideas. And there are those who are just thinking like, because there might some of them even have an outline or have an idea for a story, but when actually putting it into words is super tough, you know?
Yes.
So like, it's. I mean, because have you come across writers who have asked you like, how do I actually get this idea onto a page?
Sure. I mean, and my answer is it's always the same. It's just do it, because that's the value of the first draft. And even if you can get the first draft, then you can go, now you have something to look at and see. It'll be apparent to you. If you're a writer, it'll be apparent to you. Oh, now I see. I need to do this and that, and I need to switch the tone or whatever. But just getting it out in whatever form is beyond valuable and critical. So, I mean, the answer is always you just have to do it. Yeah.
I mean,
trust it's going to be okay. Trust
in your long writing career, have you left things undone? Are there stories which you've just sort of left in the closet?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, especially when I was younger, I think, as I got older, I mean, I only have so much bandwidth where I can put my creative energy, So, I mean, these days, no. These days, everything I work on, I finish, because, I mean, it's a business as well. So there's that, going on. But there's a ton of ideas that I have that I haven't worked on as far as writing there, but I work on them from a in my head kind of standpoint, right? And those get broken out all the time, especially in between projects, and they together gradually kind of move forward, and then ultimately one of them is like stands out, like so it waves, like, hey, I think I'm ready, like I think we get it, and then I'm like, yeah, and then say yes, and I'm like, okay, you're the one.
I mean, is there one on the back burner that's been there for so long that you think, I can just add this little bit by bit each time? This is sort of
Oh yeah, there's one in every medium too. There's a couple in books. There's a couple certainly in fiction, in the fiction audio space, movie like scripts. Yeah, so there's a lot. Yeah, it's a great for me, because I mean, Derelict is. I get what it feels like in a way, and just in a way. I'm not comparing myself, but to be like a George Lucas or something, where this property is your thing, and it demands of you the majority of your creative energy,
Yeah.
That's not a criticism of Star Wars. Star Wars is one of my favorite thing ever, but I could see, if you have this other stuff, it'd be nice to, but you just can't. You have you got to make the.
It's also nice to know that even with George, you can look at someone like George Lucas and Star Wars. Oh, that's a big idea, and then, I mean, because I remind people this all the time, like Star Wars is the original, because had you seen Dune, which is like Dune, Dune is based on, it's like even some of the Star Wars, like no, there's elements in it. I was just like, okay, that's fair enough.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, I mean, just like all yeah. For sure.
Giant sand planet, space magic emperor, that sort of thing,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, going back to the influence conversation. I mean,
yeah, but just getting back to a few other things. But when it comes to writing, when you say just do it, has there been a set timeline in your head of like how long you need to work on something like this? Because there is sort of a difficulty of like you get some people like George R. R. Martin who will take years to write books and spend a lot of time working things, and then you get people like Stephen King who can write one out every year, and somehow like he can write a book like every single year.
Sure.
Does that put pressure on you to sort of like, I need to finish this book like with a deadline, or do you sort of like have a pace of how much you will need to work on it?
Trying to think how to. I mean, it with Derelict, yes, because that's all on me. But it's such a weird thing because I kind of am the George Lucas for it, because like I produce it, and all these people who are under me depend on me producing the thing that will lead to the next step, whether there's a script or whatever. So it's such a unique experience for me. I've never had to operate like that. So with it, yes, and I feel like I fail. I feel like I've had a lot of stuff going on this year, like personally, which is taken away from it. But in my personal opinion, Derelict comes out way too slow. It comes out, some episodes, and some episodes 2 or 3 months between, and I just find it kind of unacceptable. But
like you say, when life gets in the way, you can't avoid it.
Well, it's like, but then I look at it realistically, and it's like, okay, these other podcasts have like a staff of 10 people doing sound design and editing and mixing. I mean, it's just me. I mean, I am the production crew, so that, yeah. So, I mean, that adds a lot. We're doing 1.5-hour episodes. We're not doing 40-minute episodes. We're doing basically a movie length experience.
Yeah.
Every couple, so I can see the reality, but still, yeah, it bugs me. It bugs me because I just feel like, and then I go on the Discord for the show, and I see people like, where's the next episode? And so yeah, so it does bug me. With books, it's very different. You've been paid money to produce this thing by a certain time. It's a different reality, it's a different kind of mindset.
I guess it's the fact that there's an incentive to that. Whereas with Derelict and Fathom,
it's an incentive, but it's also like you're contractually beholden to produce this. I mean, yeah, and yeah, you get the other half of your payment. That's awesome, but I don't know. It's like it's different when there's a corporation asking, "Hey, what's up?"
Yeah. Well, I suppose like when it comes to like Derelict or Fathom, you don't have that overarching parent figure to nudge you on the back.
At the end of the day,
when is everything?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But because we'll get into the Fathom and Derelict in the next hour, just because we've spent so much time on it. But like, just a little bit before of it, because you say production yourself, so notice everything does ride on you. Like, where did you learn everything about get into audio drama, that sort of audio fiction stuff?
YouTube was a big yeah. There's actually a guy in London who produces all these awesome videos. I can't remember his name, but his I'll give him a plug because he's awesome, and he produced some filters for us way back at the beginning. But it's called Music Radio Creative. I wish I could remember his name, but that's his company, and he does audio design, and he's in London. He's great, but he has a ton of videos for how to use Adobe Audition. That was the big help at the beginning. And then he's kind of self-taught, I think like many things, we built small. We started small and built. So if you look at the very first episode we did, which we can talk about this next hour, but ironically, we did the first episode of season 2 first.
Yeah.
Then
we'll
get
into that mess later.
but if you look at that is like a 10, 8, 9 track effects mix. Yeah. If you look at the season finale of 2, that's like a 45 track mix. Yeah, so it just gradually, built on as I wanted to do kind of more and more, and doing things gradually like really helps. But yeah, just kind of self-taught.
But one last question before we get into the break, and since because I've asked it for other people, it's just like making a fiction audio podcast is tough, but making a sci-fi audio fiction podcast seems a lot tougher because sci-fi does rely heavily on visual. It does rely on you sort of seeing like the spaceship. It does sort of seeing like the monster, seeing everything out there. Like, how did you work around it? How did you work on like how much do I have to describe what, especially in Derelict where you have to describe the ship?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I feel that we as consumers of story, especially movies and television, since we were like 3 years old, have a huge built-in encyclopedia in our head of filmic references. And I remember when I workshopped the first script for Derelict, there was a line in there and it said something like they hear the sound of the hull bending around them. And someone in the writers group said, how are you going to do that in audio? No one's going to know what that is. And I said, of course they will. Everyone has seen a submarine movie where the hull sound is the pressure of on the sub makes the hull kind of creak. You know that sound. You know what it is. You don't have to have a character go, oh, the hull's creaking because of the pressure. You know what that sound is, right? I think we have, because of this lexicon in our head that's been built up for decades, we have tons of references already stored. And when we hear sound A, we kind of know what that is already. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do love the fact that even in season 2, in the last couple of episodes, there's an interaction between two characters. I won't say them yet, but it's like where one of them is sort of overly describing beat by beat what's happening, and one of them go, "Would you stop saying everything that's happening on the time?"
Oh yeah,
what do you expect?
It's my coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism.
I love that moment. Yeah,
I know it's a fun bit, but it's like, what was then the hardest sound to sort of describe or have it out there to be like, I need to make sure people understand what this is?
You know, I think probably the fight between the robots in, I'm trying to think what, I think it's episode 6, where Blaine and Clayton are like trying to escape the north platform, and there's a giant combat mech fighting like this little smaller robot panther.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I just, I don't know. I think it comes across.
It's a tough thing to do audio. I'll give you that.
It is. Yeah. You know, but I felt like I'd established the big one enough with sound. I'd established the little one enough with sound. So you knew the 2 sound sets, and just having something like, while that's going on, you know, Blaine says something like, they're fighting each other. The bridge is going to rip apart or something. I don't know. But you just sort of find ways to creatively do exposition. I think what helps for us is that many times the characters are not in the same area together. So naturally they would describe what's going on because the other person isn't there over the radio. That helps a ton because it's organic. I think exposition is fine as long as it feels organic. And I think that's one of the ways that we do it.
I suppose, in audio, it can't be that organic because in the end of the day, someone does have to listen and someone does have to sort of understand what their actual person is looking at. So it's like, which you can do in that, but you can't do in audio. But listen, we'll get more into Fathom and Derelict in the next hour of the show. If you're happy to talk about it a bit more, because I imagine a lot of Derelict fans are asking, why the hell haven't you done it yet? Which we will do. So we're going to have a 5-minute break right now to sort of relax, give ourselves a bit of time, and then get into it. And then we will ask away in terms of like making the show, making Fathom, how you made something that made a prequel then afterwards, but then we'll get into that weird mess, which is always fun. So we'll see you guys in about 5 minutes, and then tune in afterwards at 5 minutes past to tune in for the bit you want, which is Derelict and Fathom. See you in a bit, guys. Hey guys, welcome back to OL, starring Chris Smith, the best comedy show on Let There Be Radio. I am still with the fabulous famous author Barton Mitchell, Jack Mitchell, author and creator of the fabulous podcast series Fathom and Derelict, which we are now getting into. So just in case anyone needs to know, there will be spoilers ahead because it is all out there. Fathom and Derelict are available right now to listen on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, no matter what. So it has been out for more than a month, or at least a month now. If you haven't finished the whole thing, maybe come back to this in a bit because this will be broadcast later, but we're going to go into spoilers on everything. So, cool. So let's talk a little bit about it because we mentioned it a little bit, teased a bit earlier. The sort of confusing run order that it got into, in the sense that started with Derelict episode 1, that you started with Derelict. So you had that. So how did the idea of Derelict come about? You had that idea of a spaceship in space.
When I decided I wanted to do like a fiction audio thing, my first thought, again, like I said before, I love derelict ships. I just think it's such a cool plot point. Derelict anything, abandon anything that people go and explore. And it's such a cool trope. And I thought that Derelict was going to be more of a found footage kind of thing, where it was like you were just strictly listening to the radio communications between a spaceship crew that had stumbled on this derelict ship. And they go in and whatever happens. And that's how I approached it. And then that's all I had. And as I started thinking more through it, as it invariably does for me, it blew up into this whole other thing. And you know, I ironically and kind of weirdly don't listen to a lot of fiction audio, believe it or not. And
really?
Yeah, and I not that I dislike it, I only have, I don't know, so much time to consume stuff, and but I think that was a major benefit because at the time most of the shows had some sort of conceit as to why they were audio only. They were either the found footage thing or they were heavily narrated or whatever. And what I wanted to do was just to do it, like I said, just as if it was you were listening to the soundtrack to a movie. I didn't know that wasn't done, and I didn't know how difficult that was. I just decided to do it. And if I think if I'd had more knowledge, maybe I wouldn't have done it. So, but that came into play because there's an actor named Elizabeth Laidlaw who,
yes.
Well, I'll get to her in a second. I decided I wanted to do the show. I wrote the script for it. It was like a 50-page script, and we did it, and it proved it was going to be too cost prohibitive. But we did the first episode thinking we would crowdfund it. It didn't happen. But we were flying actors in from wherever and recording here at my place, and it was just too much. And it crowdfunding didn't really happen, and so it got shelved. And I think it really wasn't. That was in like 2018, I think, and so that was what is now episode 1 of season 2.
Yes.
It got shelved. The pandemic hit, and as a result of the pandemic, all these actors who were voice actors ended up working from their homes, and they got their own audio setups, and it suddenly changed our whole model.
Oh, really?
Because we could, instead of having them come to us or renting a studio space for them, they had their own setup. It cut the budget by like a quarter. I mean, it made a quarter of what it would have been.
It
suddenly, yeah, totally. And suddenly it was doable. The other thing that doing the first episode showed me was it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And so I had the idea that I was going to do a prequel to that first episode and have it be more pared down, less actors. It was going to be like a 6-episode thing. Each one was going to be 30 minutes, something like that. And again, yeah. It's just as I get into stuff, it always balloons, and it ended up being a 10-episode thing with like an hour and a half long season finale episode. But during the pandemic, I met Elizabeth Laidlaw, who was a friend of a filmmaker here. Elizabeth Laidlaw plays Dr. Eva Graf,
Yes.
Which is a main character, and she became a producer on the show and was integral. And so together we took that journey through making Fathom, and it was such a great, it was I don't know, a year and a half, something like that, to produce those 10 episodes. Such an amazing time working with all those people. Michael, who plays Blaine, in the first episode of Derelict season 2, I brought him back, so he's in. So I connected everything. It was such an interesting way to do it, because doing the story in that weird back and forth way informed so much. Like, it changed the entire narrative of what Derelict was going to be in a good way, because I explored. Because it is sort of Eva Graf's story in a way. You get to do the story of the nemesis, and I don't want to call her a villain because she's more complicated than that, I think.
Well, yeah, I'll keep it. She does sort of become kind of a big nemesis in it. I mean, it's one of those things that you can understand why she did it.
Exactly.
Don't necessarily have to agree with it,
Yeah, for sure. And I think, she has places to go in her journey still. But doing it that way changed kind of everything. And I'm so glad that it ended up happening. But it did make it confusing, because that, people would be like, we called it the prequel to Derelict, which it was, but it was a prequel to something that hadn't been made yet. So people would be like, well, where's Derelict? I don't understand that. And so ultimately we ended up, it hurt, because I liked the fact that episode was up there, because it showed, I don't know, where it was kind of going, and it showed how we, to me at least. But I ended up taking that episode down for a while because it was just too confusing, and it was just Fathom. But yeah, and then you have the idea that the show called Derelict, but the first season's called something else. It's also sort of weird, but I think, if you come to it now, it all seems to fit, and it's all working together. And it was a weird journey to get, and also really emotional to go, because I had worked with that cast for episode 1 of Derelict, and we got really tight just making that one episode, and then didn't see them again for a year and a half, 2 years. And then for them to come back and pick up where they left off 2 years ago, was a really interesting thing, I think, for all of us. And then now to finally wrap it up. Well, I mean, just wrap season. There's going to be more, but to wrap season 2 up is I don't know, special. It's a special journey. I don't know that it could have happened any other way.
Up this arc of the story, with episode 10 that came out about like 20 days ago, I suppose. I don't know. But was it a thing where it's like writing? I imagine you had the outline for Derelict, and you decided, okay, I'm good. How much of Derelict then had to change because of what Fathom did?
A ton. Yeah, and it, like what I was talking about previously with the outlining, this is probably the biggest shift from an outline, especially when you consider it really started. It was just going to be this kind of simple found footage thing, If you consider that the genesis, where it is now is like totally different. But it's
amazing, and then
yeah, and it's a back and forth thing too. Like, I don't like to paint myself into narrative corners, which is that much. Which I mean by that is write something and I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. Some writers I think are better dealing with that than others. But I know we talked about Breaking Bad a minute ago. I was listening to Vince Gilligan talk about the fact that the opening to the final season is Walter White opening the trunk, and there's that M60, the big machine gun in the trunk. And he said they had no idea what they were going to do with that. That they just thought that was a really cool thing to have to open the season, and said that we'll figure it out. And then they do figure it out. It's an awesome set piece at the very end, So that's an example of it working out. For me, when I ended the first episode of Derelict, you hear the little kid laughing. I had no idea what I was going to do with that. And that totally informed Fathom, because it ends up being, now, I mean, we're in spoiler territory, but it ends up being Eva's motivation. It was just to sort of resurrect her daughter that she had lost, right? And I knew, I knew I had that to play with, and I was like, well, how do I connect that in Fathom? And that led to the entire motivation for Dr. Graff's character, and then which directly leads to the entire creation of Alpha slash Alex. So it's revealed intended to actually be Alex, and which also led to the whole. I think like one of my favorite things in the show is the reveal that the Codex is much more than anyone thought that it was. Right.
Yeah,
all of that comes from reverse engineering that little laugh at the end of the first episode.
Yeah.
So again, none of that would have happened if we hadn't done it in this order. It would be a completely different, thing.
I imagine you're satisfied no matter what the end of it. Of like, you're glad you did it.
Very, yeah. I think it paid off tremendously. I can't imagine not having done it this way. I don't recommend other creators to do it this way. It is an interesting. I mean, it's certainly an interesting exercise. And I think paid off, but it could have gone horribly awry. But I think I'm very happy with how it ended up and where it's going.
I love it. So let's talk about Fathom, which for anyone who hasn't listened to it, which is strange if you're listening to this interview, which is basically a science team are studying a door that is at the bottom of the ocean on Earth, where it's of alien origin. They have no idea what it is, and it stars Eva Grant, has Agent Blaine in it, and it sort of has like them trying to work out what's behind the door, what's going on with it, and then sort of the complications and evilness that comes afterwards in terms of after it happens. But the thing I do like about it is that even in there, we're going to talk about spoilers in a little bit. You do split Fathom up in the sense like you do switch the main character, go from one to the other. Start with Eva, but then you don't think of like, oh, she's going to be the main character. Then you sort of progress into like, oh, this is a villain arc. You're seeing like into this, and then you think, oh, the story's actually Blaine's supposed to be the hero. Like he's supposed to be the one that is on afterwards. Like, I know you don't like doing heroes and villains, but did you have an idea of like you wanted Eva to be the big baddie?
Yes, I think from the beginning. I mean, I don't know at what point it happened before writing the first script, but there was a period where I was trying to figure out who she was and what her role was going to be. But early on, I knew that I wanted the idea of doing kind of a whole season where you have the origin of the villain for the rest of the thing was really cool to me, because I felt like that would establish a connection and an affinity, and or at least an understanding of the nemesis, the villain, with the audience in a way you don't normally get. You don't. Star Wars didn't start with episode 1, right? It started with episode 4, but it would have been an interesting kind of thing if you had so that was always the intention. That's another thing I feel that came out of doing Fathom that way, is that it established this kind of structure to the stories, because Derelict does the same thing. I'm finding I really like the structure of getting to the midpoint and then backtracking with a different point of view and catching up. I enjoy that. I think that's a cool. I really like that, and I think Derelict will always feature that structure going forward now. But it wouldn't have come if we hadn't done Fathom first.
Yeah, well, because I also did the fact that you characters are big in there, but also in both series, in both Fathom and Derelict, you do have rogue AI. You have Alpha in I can't for the life of me remember what's the name of the AI in Fathom. What's his name?
Mac.
Mac, yeah.
Mac, yes, and played by probably the best actor in the show, I would think.
Well, that's a treat to him then. Yeah.
That would be myself. That was the one part I felt I probably could do.
Did you? I mean, did you want to put yourself into this, or did you want to separate yourself from it?
I didn't. I didn't go in with that intention, but Um, Look, it helps. It helps budget wise. I don't have to pay myself.
Yeah.
I don't have to. I don't have to be. I don't have to be a Screen Actors Guild member. But yeah, I it was fun and I enjoyed it, and I think it's good. I would recommend if you want to direct. Now that I've done a good amount of that going through the motions of being an actor will really inform uh, how you interact with him as a director, because you really start to see, oh, I don't know, like you start to see bringing in how you bring in stuff, how you bring in emotion, how you would want to be told to approach your performance, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, I
And
mean,
so it was tremendously valuable that way. Even though I'm directing myself, it's not quite the same, but I
I
still
mean,
get it.
was there a thing where you were sort of a bit more relaxed with yourself with your own script and writing, where you were like sort of just being like just abbreviating, or like were you following word for word of what you said, and the actors had the same thing, like following word for word?
Uh, for me, I feel for Mac, his stuff is pretty specific
Mm.
because he's a digital entity, like and very analytical. Like anything though, when you hear the dialogue out loud, lots of times you'll hear, "Oh yeah, that doesn't sound how I thought it was going to sound." So you can adjust. But Mac, I mean, I'm lucky in that, unlike the other actors, I can just go to my microphone and do the line 50 times,
Mm.
and one of them is going to be okay. You know,
I
so
suppose
it's a different.
I suppose the nice thing when you're a director is if after 50 times you just be like, I can know that'll do. That'll be the
Yeah,
line.
pretty much. Yeah, I'll do it to. It's like I approach it like how I approach writing. Like I said, I just do it so I don't cringe. And if I get two or three that I don't cringe on, I figure I kind of have it. Also, the voice filter helps a lot. It kind of something about that kind of sells the performance, I think, more. But um, as far as the other actors, I think you were asking. I always tell them I'm not precious with my dialogue, and if one line said by one actor versus that same line said by another actor might sound completely different, and each one, like, one may just nail it and the other one may have, it just doesn't work for their brain somehow. And so I'm always, okay, just make it work for you, like whatever words. So I think I think those performances are 60%, I don't want to say that, 75% them and 25% me, because I am doing a lot when I get into editing. Like, I'm adding pauses in between words, or I'm getting rid of pauses, or I'm taking one line from take one, two lines from take three, then the next line from take two. With audio, I think it's a luxury you don't have with film or television, because there's video is tied to it, so it's harder to splice in one line from because if it's a
Yes, I
shot,
suppose that's the, you can't just go back and, or you, at the very most, just be like, ask them, could you just say that line again in a different way? And that's not the biggest thing out of your budget.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I don't know. Audio gives you a little more leeway, but yeah.
Yeah. I suppose, like, when it came, so Fathom was set on that. You knew the stakes. You knew, like, okay, at least with Fathom Derelict, you had your own rules of, like, okay, these are the corporations that's going to deal with it. This is the thing that's actually going to be the baddie. Was there any part of it where it's like, especially when it comes to like alien stuff or anything else, where it's just like, oh, this is a difficult thing to write. Like, how do I get into this?
Yeah, I find that, I love, like, science and physics and quantum physics and all the science disciplines. I don't understand most of it. I'm not like that smart of a guy who did not do well in math, for instance. But oh my gosh, I wish I was smart in that way, because I just love scientists. I just love people who figures like how the universe works out, and I love scientists' characters. If you look at Fathom, with the exception of Blaine, most of them are scientists in some way. Same with Derelict, though that's more of a, like, engineering versus science. But
Yeah.
I think putting those types of people in storylines that traditionally would involve a Blaine type guy, like, an action hero kind of dude who's equipped and trained to deal with these types of things.
Yeah.
To put people who like generally deal with numbers, or wrenches into those situations is kind of more interesting. So, but putting that stuff together is tough for me, and I do a lot of research for the show. Like I try to find, I do a lot of time on Wikipedia. Chat GPT now is great for figuring out, quantum physics things and stuff. But so I really try, and it's not hard sci-fi, it's not David
That's
Brin
kind
or
of what I
anything.
asked
But
you about, just because not only do you have to sort of like, because they, especially with Fathom, which was it's a science based, you do have to sort of have some of the science in there, but also especially with both of them, it's the future. A lot of the stuff is kind of made up, like T dates and
sure.
like the sort of like augmented stuff. So it's like, is it difficult to sort of make made up science fiction sound as sciencey as possible?
I think I have a particular talent at that with dialogue. I think it's I think it's writing, just at least for me, is a whole bunch of different things. You have a toolbox of stuff, and I think that's one of the things I'm pretty good at is techie jargon in dialogue that sounds, like it should, or like, and I think if it's an advantage of having scientist characters or engineer characters, because they get it and they don't have to explain it to each other. Yeah. Right? There's no reason for them to explain Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, you don't have to explain why this thing works. It just does.
Yes. Right. Yeah. I mean, you want a little bit of it because I think it's cool. I love that stuff. I think it's neat to talk about the T-gates. I think it's neat to talk about how Fathom is broken into these different platforms and each one does a different thing and how they're all connected and the tram that goes between them. And I love Derelict. I love the apparatus, the giant machine that sweeps the ship. I love stuff like that. So
you made that ship massive, more massive than it needed to be. The ship is gigantic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I don't know. Yeah, I love big stuff. But I think that you would, as I think it through, the purpose of that, it's a research ship. It's meant to operate remotely, disconnected from everything else, because it's because of the stuff it's doing. Then you start thinking, well, you would need a bridge crew, you would need maintenance people, then you have scientists. They need a place to sleep. They need a place to do. So the ship just kind of becomes, as you think it through, same with Fathom. I was just like, I love stuff like that. I love the logistics and thinking it through. And one of my favorite things, maybe you can find it somewhere if you Google it, but when we did the crowdfunding for season 2, our art director, his name was Josh Jenkins, super talented guy. He did this like schematic of Fathom. And it's just, I spent so much time developing that with him, like all the little pieces of each platform and how they all work together and stuff.
No, you read my mind, because I was going to ask you that, because it's like, because you planned so much, or did you plan a little bit, did you have like an outline or of things of like,
oh yeah,
okay, this is what the base looks like, this is what the ship looks like, or just like, because then you had to go back and be like, wait, where are they on the ship? How close are they to other things? Or
exactly.
Where you planned that fully out? That's impressive.
Yeah, well, you kind of, I don't know. I feel like I have to in order to get it right, especially, like Fathom, just knowing where the Eva storyline, the Eva and the Eva storyline was happening versus the Blaine and Clayton storyline and where they connect. So, just having the geography, I think is super important for it to feel real. I think world building, which is one of my favorite things, I think what makes really successful world building is all kinds of little things put together, not the big stuff. How a door works, how a computer interface works, what type of food is served at the cafeteria, like what type, I don't know, what drones are used for versus what dive suits are used for, stuff like that, and it all makes this tableau that makes the world feel real. It's not the giant things; it's all the little things, you know. And I think you have to kind of, at least for me, I have to keep it all in my head. I have to map it out. I have to have diagrams and draw stuff.
Is that out there somewhere? Is there a diagram of the base of Fathom that people can look at?
Yeah, there's the one, like I said, there's the one of Fathom from crowdfunding, and we should post it up again. But yeah, at some point I should do it. Most of it is, so we're going to do crowdfunding for season 3 and for some other stuff soon. So we'll have a similar schematic for the ship, I think.
Well, I mean, you dived on into it, so let's get into it. So the season 2 has just ended, kind of on a cliffhanger, sort of, in the way that you did it with, you know, with Chambers and Blaine and where Rain is right now, that sort of thing. Have you got an idea for season 3?
Yeah, so we're gonna do it. The show is to a point now where, fortunately, we're able to do more. So we're going right now. What I'm working on now is kind of a bonus season that's going to take place between season 1 and season 2, and it follows Blaine. So it's where Blaine was during that time, and how he got to the mission on Derelict. That's going to be 10
years that he had to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, if you look at him in Derelict versus Fathom, he's a very different guy, and he's been through a whole bunch, and he's lost a lot of stuff. And so it's that journey, with a really cool kind of I don't know how much I want to say, but it's kind of a Dirty Dozen style suicide mission sort of story that I think is going to be really neat, and I'm very excited to do. So so I'm actively writing that now. I think we'll be in production on that the first of the year. That's the hope. And then when that's done, we'll move into season 3. Season 3 is just going to be, it'll be good for me to do the Blaine thing because it is like a little bit of a gear shift, and I think that helps me creatively, you know, to kind of focus on something else. Even though it's in the same universe, it's a standalone story, so it doesn't come with the same kind of weight and requirements that a multi-season thing does. So it'll be a nice little break. Season 3 is going to be such a giant undertaking, I think, in the best way. Like, it's going to be probably double the character set of season 2. It's really going to be massive, I think, in a really cool way. If, you know, I mean, I think you sort of get the idea by the end of season 2 that Francis Dorian and Evelyn Moss are kind of at odds with each other and have their own agendas, though those agendas aren't totally spelled out. So season 3 will be this kind of divided narrative between like a team Dorian and a team Moss on the ship, kind of deciding in a way that the future of humanity, because of what's going on that ship, is so important. And each side really believes what they're doing is the correct thing. And so it's going to, and so all the characters that you've met so far, even some of the ones you think may be gone, are, you know, or some might return, but to pit them against each other now, I think is going to be really cool, with the Eva and Alpha storyline in the middle, kind of playing both ends to their own agenda as well. So it's going to be, it's going to be huge. You know, when Clayton shows up, she has the first contact team with them. That's a character set.
That was fun. Yeah,
cool. And so the Team Dorian side will have their own equivalent of that. So that's a bunch of new characters as well. So it's going to be big. It's going to be a really big thing.
I mean, one of my favorite characters of season 2 is Killian. Who's a fantastic guy. That you wrote someone as such a weird. It made me feel stupid. Whereas like in like episode 5, where it's like the big reveal happens, or like what happens with Alpha, and then you find out about Killian. Where it's just like, I felt thinking back to things like, how dare this mass murderer betray me? Wait, what?
Yeah, no, it's totally true. I agree with that. That's one of my. That's, again, I love that twist. It's one of my favorite things I've done. And yeah, I love that character. It's one of my favorites to write. And I love the actor is Mustafa Slack, is a fantastic actor in Atlanta. It's great. It's always great writing and working with that character.
just before we get to other things, just because so you can ask this to we've seen how much of season 3 have you written, or is it just planning? You're still working on the
season 3. I haven't written anything. I have
nothing,
but it's I know the big beats. So I mean, it's in again, it will evolve as it does. But I the closer you get to the end of stuff, the more you're kind of roped into certain ways because of what you've written. So
I mean,
three will.
I know it's a big ask, but is there a name?
A name? For season 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. The season 3 will be called Derelict War.
Derelict War. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I love it.
Yeah.
That is very good. I love it. Okay. Yeah. Right then. So we have about 20-25 minutes or so. We'll still ask questions in between these things, but one thing I like to do with everyone of these who does podcasts and things, I like to do the rapid fire questions, which is sort of the not rapid fire in the sense of answering quickly, but the tough, the big ones where it's just like, these are tough, but I hope they draw a bit more big questions in there. So hope you're ready. So let's just get into this. So what is the easiest episode to write?
Definitely the first episode of season 2. The first one we ever did.
Really?
Was it wrote itself in like 10 days probably. But that's because it was like we talked about, it was at the beginning and you have unlimited possibilities and you don't have to worry so much about explaining stuff. You can just establish it. And it's probably the shortest episode. I think it's only 45 minutes, which was sort of the goal at the time, was to keep them around that length. So, it for whatever reason just spilled out, and it was super easy to write, and also the easiest to record and mix and edit because, like I said, it was a lot less audio tracks and things.
I guess, the fact that it was the set, because it was the setup, it was a lot easier to just sort of be like, okay.
Yeah, you can just do whatever.
Yeah. Okay, well then let's go to the opposite there. What was the hardest episode to write?
Definitely the end of this season, because
episode 10.
The season finale, because there's so many loose ends to tie up to stick that landing. So yeah, I mean, it's just bringing all those little elements together, explaining, deciding what stuff to explain, and why, versus what to hold. I mean, each character has their own things that need to happen to pay off what you've set up previously. So making those all fit organically. So yeah, it was a real house of cards.
Well, I mean, when I saw it came up and I saw it was over 2 hours long, I just sort of been like, oh boy, this is a lot. Like, but I just sort of like, okay, this is you wrapping up. This is you getting everything in order.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I hope people feel like, instead of thinking of it like, it's a slog, like it's 2 hours, but I hope people feel like, oh wow, it's 2 hours of this thing that I like.
I loved it because I loved stuff like that, but it's like, I do sort of like find it, because there are times when shows have to set line like, we'll do 45 to an hour long, like for every single episode, and then like the last episode is, we gotta fix everything. This is it, because we haven't time to do it, so we'll do everything. But you haven't done that, because a lot of episodes have been over an hour long anyway. So this felt like it was a massive thing to listen to anyway.
It's a luxury to have it be, it's my thing, right? And so the episodes can be the length I feel they need to be. If this got bought by like Netflix or something, it'd be an interesting challenge, because you'd have to, it'd have to be more structured.
Well, if they did, I'd watch it. But also just to see like how on God's good that they make Fathom, that would be a gigantic set.
It would be. It'd be quite a bill budget wise.
But still worth doing. So moving on, let's do, what was the easiest character to write for?
Well, we've already talked about, I mean, I think probably for whatever reason, Killian, for some reason, even though his dialogue is so obtuse, it really comes out of me easily. I don't know why, but I like that speak. It's just sort of organic to do. I just think so much of him is organic for me. Like I get his I get his motivation. I get who he is. I don't have to work hard to advance and progress him as a character. Yeah, I think him followed by Blaine for similar reasons. Yep.
I mean, I do love an episode because Blaine is one of. I do love him because episode 9. Like, for most of the time he's a rough and good character, but then like you sort of added at the start, like you added he has a weird he has a weird way of making cereal, which is like it's such a weird. It's just like why should
Yeah.
like, why add sugar? Like it's just a weird added bit to it. It's just like okay.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know. I think there's a lot going on behind the curtain with Blaine. You know what I mean? I
mean, because when you said that, because even after when I listen to it now, you just feel like if you have a man who goes half and half, but also adds sugar and spice into his cereal, you just feel like,
oh, it's disgusting. Yeah.
Well, you listen to it, you feel like, oh, this man's moved for a lot. Like this is a man who needs to have something in his cereal to get going. Okay, moving on then. So, what was then the hardest character to write?
Probably Stevens. For the same reasons that Killian was sort of, well, I don't know, something his dialogue, the kind of it's more cerebral for me to produce. I have to really think about it, and I think he specifically is a difficult needle to thread because he starts off so like unlikable. And then as a result of events, the goal is that he transitions into someone that you do kind of like root for, and by the end of 10, he's sort of making these heroic sacrifice things that even he acknowledges he probably wouldn't have done like a week ago, right? You know, so I think that was the hardest. That it was the biggest shift of how a character starts, and other than Eva, obviously. So I think probably him, just because he has checking his boxes was for me the most involved and difficult, I guess.
Did they have to have trouble sort of like playing out the lines that you wrote for him, or did he just sort of go into it easily?
Easily, yeah. I think JD brings so much to that part. I think JD, quite frankly, I feel like Stevens is such an integral character in the set because he brings this kind of everyman levity to the show that I don't think anyone else brings. And I was telling JD this, you know, and that I think it's so important that he be there, that he be going through that, and have gone through all the stuff that he's gone through previously. Because I don't know, I think he just shines a spotlight on certain aspects of the morality of what's going on in a way that no one else does, and I think it's super important. And JD encompasses it awesomely. And you know, I mean, JD in real life is primarily a stage actor and also a really talented writer of plays and books and stuff, but has that really cool kind of New York-esque accent and vibe, and he just he inhabits the character. Everyone's great. All the actors are great, and they all inhabit their characters in different ways, you know. But he really does, and I think he's really important to the show.
Because you do think about with Stevens, like you said, when you first meet him, he's unlikable. He's not exactly he's right off the bat, like he's not the most likable guy in the sense of like especially he betrays everyone, does that whole sort of thing. But then like it's funny when you think about this. It's like because you know what he's in it for. Like he is very simple, kind of like this is his motivations.
Mm-hmm.
Also, at the end of it, when he's like sort of motivating Blaine and also helping Irena, you sort of realize at the end of it, like, oh, this guy's kind of the most stable because he knows what he is. He knows where he's going. He's not troubled by his past. Oh God, Stevens is the good one. This is so weird.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
totally true. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so now we just move on to a little bit. So I know you don't listen to a lot, but have you got another favorite podcast other than yours?
On the fiction side of things, I probably would say like Welcome to Night Vale. It's an obvious choice, but
Oh
I'm gonna
yeah,
probably have to go to obvious choices there. I think what they do is so kind of brilliant and like just simple and focused and super cool. I love that if you just I think it's something brilliant that like, if you just stumbled on that show, you had no idea what it was, and you started listening,
yeah,
I think you would just be like, what, what's I think it's cool. It's just so it's Monty Python like. I mean, it's great. It's awesome. On the nonfiction side, I love Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Probably another obvious one, but I just think I love history in general, and I love that. I just love Carlin's approach to it. I love the way he describes his ability as a storyteller. I think is kind of unmatched to just sit and describe the events of something in this and find the inherent drama in it and the tension of it and make these 4, 5, 6 hour diatribes on the Mongols or something. Just really just breathe life into it in a way that I think is really rare. So I mean, I love that show.
fantastic. And since we've been delving into this sort of genre, have you got a favorite sci-fi show or sci-fi movie?
Oh gosh, that's the tough. I think if you want to talk shows,
Let's start with TV show. What's your favorite science fiction TV show?
it would either be Star Trek Next Generation or X Files. Star Trek Next Generation, I think. I'm probably dating myself here, but Next Generation, like I think
Hang on. Yeah.
carries carries the greatness through to the end in this really amazing way. Like it's just so satisfying, at least in my opinion, from beginning to end, and so innovative, and the ability to do what they did from an episodic and a serialized nature. I mean, I just think it's pretty stunning. I love that character set is so classic, and
Mm.
you love all of them for different reasons. And I'm so emotional when it ended, and so yeah. And then you go to X Files. X Files to me was one of my favorite TV journeys I've ever made. I think in my personal opinion, it kind of goes off the rails towards season 7 and on. But whatever, getting to that point was just so like unique and engrossing, and this amazing experience that you got to have. I learned so much from it, just how you maintain suspense and tension in world building without frustrating the audience too, or overly frustrating them. So I say those two shows. Movie wise, Empire Strikes Back is my favorite film of all time. It's an obvious one. I mean, it's so great. But Aliens, geez, I don't know. 2001: A Space Odyssey, I think, is the short list, maybe for the greatest film ever made. It's just so unique and masterful on like every level, and looking at all this stuff.
And underappreciated now, I think, by a lot of young kids. Yeah.
Sure. I think if you go, I mean, even knowing that, I mean, that was pre-Star Wars, if I'm not mistaken. And to go look at those models as special effects, I think it holds up today. Like it's pretty stunning. Like when you see the space station rotating and stuff, and the docking scene and all that.
Yeah, I mean, especially like when you go like behind the scenes and looking like what he had to do to do it, because I think it is it's a 1960s movie, and what he had to do, like make things float or like make things walk around with set models and stuff. Like he had to invent stuff in order to actually make it look real.
Yeah, kind of like I think like Nolan is sort of Kubrickian in that way, like the way he has to figure out ways to sort of advance practical filmmaking, which a lot of people aren't bothering to do anymore. And I think that's like when you see that for Interstellar, that when he's in the singularity or whatever it is, the end where he's that was all real. That wasn't like CGI. They actually made that set and used it, and that's really inspiring.
No, it's good. Yeah, because with he actually had to call up scientists and ask, what does a black hole look like? And they actually
Yeah,
like,
which
oh, this is how a black hole actually would look like, you know?
well, yeah, but I think they didn't have that visualization until he, if I'm not mistaken, I think he spurred them to make
Yeah, he did.
the
Yeah,
first ever vision. Yeah,
yeah.
which is
I mean,
really cool.
the whole point of it is that he had to he wanted to show like the singularity in the middle, and
yeah.
they had to ask like, how would you show it? And the scientists were like, oh wait, how does a black hole look like?
How would it? Yeah. That's really cool.
And I know you don't like to choose among your children, but have you got a favorite amongst your little babies of books and anything you've written?
Like in the entire gamut.
In the entire gamut, have you got one that's like, this is my favorite?
Oh yeah, Derelict. I mean, it's my it's my favorite. It's my favorite medium I've ever worked in. I just love it. It's I'll try to. I know we don't have much time, so I'll try to say this short. But I think I'm a big gamer, so I play a lot of computer games, and I think that clearly the most interactive form of storytelling, for obvious reasons, you get to be in the story and participate in it. I think the second most immersive and interactive form of storytelling, ironically, is books, which sounds a little odd at first because you're going from something visual to something strictly text-based, but what that does is it requires you to participate in the storytelling process, right? You have to picture the main character. You have to picture the spaceship. You have to picture the inside of a bridge or whatever, right? So you get to be involved in a way that you don't in like a movie, which everything is sort of, you don't have to imagine what Darth Vader looks like. He's right there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So you don't get to. It's kind of more of it's not a criticism. It's just a reality. It's a more static viewing experience. To me, the third most immersive, interactive, in my opinion, medium is fiction audio. I think because it's just audio. You still have to picture it. You have your idea of what Blaine looks like. You have your idea of what Fathom looks like, and so there is an interactive in the way that books are. But by that same token, and I love that, and so it lets me play to my strengths, which I think is on the script side of stuff, but also produce something that's more than just the blueprint, and it's all mine. And it's not all mine; it's a collaborative experience. But it's the single most rewarding thing that I've done, and I look forward to working on it every day. I love it, and I love that world and the characters, and yeah.
Love that very much. Well, because I meant to ask about this, but like I assume we're very big. Like, I mean, you do a lot of crowdfunding. There's a lot of fans out there, which must mean there must be a lot of fan art, or there's some parts of it that are out there, especially with some of the characters. I take it.
So Josh, again, his art director, has done a bunch. I need to post it more. We did a bunch of concept art for the characters for the crowdfunding for season 2, and they're really cool.
Did any of them look like the characters you imagined?
Well, yeah, because I participated in the.
I know, but so there's one like in your head, and there's others when you actually see it. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'd say it's like a 60-40 kind of thing because I was very involved in the development of those art pieces, right? So they are, for the most part, how I see the characters, which is not. I don't think of it. That's not canon or anything. I think. I like the idea that different people have different ideas, but they do represent mine. But many times Josh would turn in stuff that was in a different direction. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with that. Let's do that. That's neat. I like that. And so yeah. So it is kind of, it's both. It's a mix.
I love that. And just because you're one of the only few authors I have on this show, which is fine. What is one book you would recommend everyone read?
My favorite book of all time it's probably obvious. Most people probably have read it, but it's William Gibson's Neuromancer. I just think so much going on in that, especially with the emergence of quote AI now. He was such a futurist and an amazing predictor, and you look at all these terms. If you haven't read Gibson, to think that it was done in like 81 or 1980, whatever. This, all this stuff we have now was predicted by him, and all that terminology he kind of invented is used now. But it's more than just an intellectual exercise. It's just so noir, pulpy, cool. The megacorps, there's like ninjas, there's hackers, there's cyber augmented, soldiers. I mean, all that stuff that you see, like if you play Cyberpunk 2049, that's all. You wouldn't have any of that without Gibson, and just like amazing Elmore Leonard-esque prose. The opening line of that book is one of my favorites, and it is something like, "The sky over the port was the color of a television tuned to a dead channel."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just the whole. It's actually a trilogy. It's a sprawl trilogy. It's great, but it's all like just that kind of Dashiell Hammett, like kind of hard noir, but with tech terms, and it's so unique and.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a favorite author? Do you have someone that you're like, I read all their books?
I mean Gibson.
Yeah.
I like a lot of older stuff. I love like Robert E. Howard. I love Lovecraft. Pulpy. I love like Chandler. I love. There's a lot of older pulpy stuff I really dig. I think Stephen Green or Brian Greene, the Deathstalker stuff. I think that is. Yeah, if you haven't read it, it's just a great kitchen sink series. Like just throws in every genre you could think of, and like a really cool. You could tell he's in love with it. I love stuff like that. I love I don't know.
All right,
Frank Herbert.
Well, it has been a absolutely fun 2 hours. Listening to everything, going through your whole biography and everything, which has been fantastic. But we got to get through to promotion stuff. So, Jack, please tell everyone, where can they find you? How can they find Derelict? How can they find everything that you are?
Derelict, you can go to derelictpodcast.com. It's a great source for the show. It has links to everything to just get started listening. Just look me up. My books are all on Amazon. J. Barton Mitchell. There's Conquered Earth. There's The Razor. Yeah. I'm also on Instagram. Another good place to interact with me.
Yeah, so that's just to promote you a bit more. Yeah, Derelict Podcast, you can find on Instagram as well as J. Barton Mitchell on Instagram as well. Go on the website, which is derelictpodcast.co.uk, where you can find not only the outlines, you also find the transcripts, everything there, but all your podcasts, both seasons, Fathom and Derelict, fully completed, as far as I know, are out right now on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So there's all if anyone to listen to right now. And if anyone wants to follow me and all my stuff, you can find me on Instagram at Mr. Chris_Smith, which is my stuff, or YouTube, which will be CS Reacts, which is where this entire show will be put on my channel later in the week, where you'll be able to watch us just in our sci-fi stupid shirts, just have fun, just talk around each other. And also go onto our Instagram at LoveDB Radio, which is at LoveDAB Radio. That you can find everything else there. Jack, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and thank you so much for taking the time to sort of chat to me the whole thing. It has been a pleasure, and please, everyone, I encourage everyone, go listen to Derelict and Fathom. Maybe listen to Fathom first so that you understand what's going on.
Definitely listen to Fathom first,
yeah. Because, I mean, if you want to do the purist and do Derelict episode 1 and then do Fathom and then do Carry On, you can definitely do that if you want. Go Star Wars on that way.
Yeah, exactly.
But apart from that, guys, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next page with whatever guest I managed to come up with. But it is a real pleasure, and thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.